Welcome to Beyond Disruption, where you'll learn how emerging tech is changing the world of accounting, business, and finance. Our guest experts break down the latest news in everything from blockchain to robotics, artificial intelligence to human intelligence. Tune in to find out how you can stay ahead of the curve.
Hi, this is Jennifer Gardner, and I'm here today with Heather Hollick. Heather is a teacher, coach, consultant, and writer on a mission to make the world a better place to work. After teaching math and physics to high school and college students for 7 years, she moved into the corporate world where she spent more than 25 years in a variety of industries and organizational cultures. She now works with ambitious professionals in the areas of networking, careers, high-performing teams, and leadership development. Heather is also the author of Helpful, a guide to life, careers, and the art of networking. So, Heather, welcome.
Thank you.
How did the book come to be? Why did you write it?
I came to the networking arena very late. I was in my mid-40s. My career was stalled. So I did whatever every smart, stuck mid-career professional does, and I went back to school. So I got into business school. I started an MBA, and I realized almost instantly that although the MBA was great, what was really missing was the whole networking thing. I have a very strong preference for introversion. I was just really bad at it. But I got to school and that's all everyone talked about. So I just dove in. If anything's worth doing, it's worth doing fanatically. So I did. I went to every bar of the month and pub of the week and every event on every quadrangle. And at first it was pretty intoxicating, although it may have been pub ale and not the networking. But I realized pretty quickly that still something was missing, right? So you're going to all these events and it's like, what's happening? There was no real connection happening. So I kind of fell back and regrouped. And to be honest, it took me quite a while. It probably took me another 3 or 4 years to figure out, because I knew the networking was the thing. I knew that's why my career was stuck. Right? The school helped and the courses helped, but that wasn't why my career had hit the wall. It was because I wasn't very well networked in my company, in my industry. So I'm like, doggone it, I'm going to figure this out. Now, it took me a while, and it took me a trip to London and then back to New Jersey. Not a trip, a year and a half in London and moving to New Jersey. But all of that moving around kind of forced me into new circumstances and building new networks. Anyway, I finally figured it out, and I started talking about it. And so I talked at any kind of career, any chance I could get, I would do talks and workshops on it. And about, maybe 4 or 5 years after I started doing workshops, I'd gotten to the point where, because every time I'd talk, I'd get feedback from people and I'd make it better and it would evolve. And I got to the point where I did a full day. So I had this whole day workshop, right from what is a network to how do you network at work. There was just so much good stuff. And I stumbled across this book called Author, Publisher, Entrepreneur, on how to write a book. And he said the most important thing is you've got to have a great outline. Spend 60% of your time writing a great outline. And I'm like, well, I pulled up the slide deck from my full day workshop and there's 65 slides in there. I'm like, well, there's my outline. It was perfect. It was already in the right order and everything. So I sat down and started writing. And that was 3 or 4 years ago, and it's taken a while. The first one takes a long time.
I bet.
But here we go. So it's kind of the distillation of everything I've learned from me and literally thousands of people who've given me feedback and hundreds of people in my network. And we kind of put it all in one place. So.
Great. So in the back of your book, you proclaim that the way we're networking isn't working. What do you think's not working? Is it the lack of connection?
Connection is a huge part of it, right? So you start with just think about the last time you thought you were networking and you were probably standing in some event and it was probably noisy and just this whole, screaming to even hear yourself, let alone the person across from you. And it's just, I'm an introvert, so that is very stressful to me. So first of all, this idea that networking equal events just drives me bonkers. Why is networking equal going someplace and moving into a crowded room where you can't even hear? That's not networking. And then secondly, most people think about networking as a way for you to get something. And that just never sat well with me. People talk about if you're in sales, you got to have a network. Well, that's just I call that groveling. That's just like, what do you got? You got something for me? That's not networking, right? So I grew up in Canada. We can't help but be helpful, right? That's how the title came. It's just, to me, it was about finding ways to be helpful, and that wasn't happening. So that's how I stuck on my quest. It's like, whatever it is that most people think is networking, this noisy events and what's in it for me was not it.
Right. So it's not standing around drinking a beer.
Beer's good, but that's not networking. Exactly. That's a wonderful way to spend a Friday night, perhaps, and a good, a few laughs with your friends. But I just define networking very specifically. I think it's about building and maintaining professional relationships in a meaningful way. And for me, now I will grant that for some people, maybe, a few loud beers at a pub may actually build a relationship. It certainly doesn't for me. I'm way too introverted for that, and I'm way too introspective, and I'm way too in my head for that. So I'm never going to have relationships, nor is anyone going to have one with me if that's the only place that I go to connect with people.
Well, I was telling you earlier, I went to an event about a week and a half ago. I wasn't feeling well. I am an extrovert, but when I'm in these situations, I get shy.
Sure.
And it's hard for me if I'm not there with people I know, or I don't see a lot of people I know, to break into those conversations. So I struggle with networking events as well, even though I'm not a true introvert.
Good that you acknowledge that, right? So if I go to events now, and I don't go very often, but if I do, I go kind of on my own terms now. So I like to say I used to go to networking events and I'd step inside the door and I would just stand there in this catatonic state and just pray that maybe someone would come up to me. I wouldn't even know what I was praying because I was really just kind of catatonic. And then for about 6 months, I just went and listened, and I kind of watched that, how do people connect with one another? How do they engage? And at that time, I kind of had this shift to, I'm going to network in my own way. And now, if I go to an event, it kind of looks the same. I'll step right inside the door. I'll put my back against the wall. But instead of feeling embarrassed about that, I'll just read the room. What's happening here? Where's the energy? Who's the center? Where are the center of gravity in this room? Who's open for conversation? You can actually tell if you are at an event. Groups like individuals have body language. This is one of my favorite. It's really cool stuff. So you know that if you're talking to a person one-on-one and they have their arms crossed, they're closed, right?
Right.
Well, groups do the same thing. So if there's two people standing straight face to face, that's a closed conversation. Don't butt in on that one.
Right.
But if they're standing kind of in a V, that's an open invitation. Go step where the V is open and start. Or if there's 3 or more, and the next time you go to an event, just spend the first 10 minutes just observing from the sidelines. And you'll see people ebbing and flowing out of conversations. You'll see circles open up and close. You'll see people square off and then open up into a V. And that kind of gives you a cue. When is it okay if I do want to go? And then further from that, don't go. If that's not a place, or you said you weren't feeling well, don't go there. You're not going to be your best self, right?
Right.
I've actually went to one event in Raleigh once where it was a long day, a long week. I was not feeling well. I'd driven all the way from Chapel Hill to downtown Raleigh. I parked 2 blocks, walked in the heat. And as I was about to open the door to this place, and it was a bar, before I even opened the door, I could hear the noise. It was just so loud. And I thought, I'm not going to be my best self. I'm not going to like the person I am. There's no chance nobody's going to like me. And I turned around and went home. And it was a long drive home, but it was better than going there and making a bad impression. So expand your horizon of ways that you can connect with people beyond just
Okay, so let's
events.
talk about that a little bit. So
Okay.
I'm going to selectively go to networking events.
Okay, good.
And I'm not going to go when I don't feel well.
Please.
Mental
Don't
note.
apologize. Yeah.
So I'm not going to networking events. So how am I going to do my networking? What are my other options?
Well, it matters then what you mean by networking, right? So that was a big part of my quest, is I literally had on a whiteboard, what is networking ? And that was my definition of the quest. What is that? And it took me a while to unpack that, right? And so you keep asking, what is networking? What is networking? It's not this, it's not that. And I'm a mathematician at heart. So when we have problems that are intractable, that are unsolvable, we tend to break them down into smaller problems. And if we can solve that problem, then maybe we can glue it back together, right? So what I noticed one day, and I know this is kind of crazy, but I'm looking at that question, what is networking? And there's another question buried in there. And it's, what is a network? And that's when I rethought, right? So wait a minute. I don't even know what my network is, right? Most people don't have a clear sense of what their network is. And so that's kind of pedantic, but is it like the list of names in your address book? Is it your LinkedIn connections or Facebook friends? And that to me is like, really? Because if that's it, right? What do I do with that? It's not a very useful sense, right?
Well, and some of those connections aren't very strong.
Exactly. Or they're old, or they're faded. So you're leading us right into that, right? So I realized, as soon as you start asking yourself that question, it's like, no, it's not people. It's the space between us, right? A network is this connection with someone. So immediately, and this is actually possibly comes from mathematics. So a network is not the node, it's not the people, it's the links between everybody. And as soon as you define it as that, you realize that those links have two magical properties. Every one of those links has a certain degree of freshness. How fresh is it? Right? You and I are talking right now, so this link is super fresh. But a month from now, it's going to be faded, right? A year from now, it's going to be almost gone, right? And we'll need to do something to refreshen it, right? So it has this magical property of freshness, and it has a magical property of strength, right? There's people who I was really tight with in college that I haven't seen them in a while, but we're still tight. And we do a favor for each other in a heartbeat, right? So freshness and strength. That then is the characteristics of the link of what a network is. And anything that nurtures freshness and strength, anything that creates freshness or strengthens a connection with someone is networking. Now, with that kind of on the table, I know you just a little bit, and I don't know your network though. Anything that creates, freshens, or strengthens a connection for you, and I underscore for you, is networking. Anything. And anything that does not freshen, strengthen, or create a link for you is not networking. Hence, I don't go to events anymore because no freshening happens there. I'm catatonic. It's too stressful for me, right? Therefore, you have to rethink, how do I connect with people? How do I freshen a link? I do a lot of email. I do a lot of social media pings. I do a lot of visiting when I'm in town. Most of those engagements are pretty small group because I have a strong preference for introversion. So that's the way I connect with people. But just ask yourself, how do I connect with people? Anything. And I even argue it's really passive, but it's not zero. That just updating your LinkedIn profile and that blast goes out to people and they can see what you've been working on, you're kind of freshening the link. It's not great. It's not near as great as having dinner with someone, but it's not nothing, right? It's not zero.
There's also the opportunity to comment on what other people are sharing, which I think helps keep those connections strong.
And that's an active part of connecting with me. I love looking through LinkedIn and seeing who's active right now, right? Who's just out there. And to me, the question is, because I'm always looking for some way to do what's called the constant exchange of favors and information. I'm always looking for a way to maybe share something I know or offer somebody in my network who might be helpful to you. And so people put themselves out there. Hey, I read this article. I'm working on this. I got a new job. I'm looking to hire someone. That's just an invitation for me to say, oh, I know something or I know somebody, right?
Right. And that brings us back to that concept of being helpful.
Yes, exactly. The idea is it's not what's in it for me. It's how can I be helpful, right? Who do I know and what do I know that might be helpful to you, that might help you be successful? And if I can't think of anything right now or I don't know anything right now, that just means I don't know you well enough. I don't know what you're working on enough, right? And how would I, right? But nevertheless, that's the framing in my head as I'm racking my brain, literally down in this loop. Who do I know? What do I know that might help you be successful, right? I may meet the person I need to introduce to you next week. I may stumble across an article that you really have been looking for 2 weeks from now. And I'll send it when I do, by the way, because that will freshen the link, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's really about this constant exchange of favors. No, two things. It's constant exchange of favors and information. That's how you strengthen links. And just this deliberate investment in freshening links because links fade, right? They fade fast. And so I actually have kind of my network, I think of it in 3 concentric circles. And that inner circle is kind of a monthly that I make no apologies. If you're in that monthly circle right now, and that ebbs and flows, it depends what I'm working on, how well we know it. I don't need an excuse. I'll drop you a line or pick up the phone or pop into your office or whatever it is and say, hey, what are you working on, right? What's going on? So because it's important to me to keep those links fresh. So either the deliberate investment of freshening links or the constant exchange of favors and information, those two magic characteristics of alcohol, that's networking. Yeah. And I can't prescribe what that is for you, but I guarantee for most people, it's not a noisy bar.
Got it. So one of the times we rely on our network or we're looking to our network for help is when we're looking for a job search. What advice do you have for people who are trying to find their next opportunity? How can they best go about working with their network to meet their goal and being helpful at the same time to the people they're working with?
Well, that's the challenge, right? So networking is about engaging the world with a spirit of helpfulness. If you're on the need, you need to be really careful, because I call that net groveling, right? It doesn't work, right? Please do not send your resume out to everybody in your email list and say, if you know anything. It's just embarrassing, right? And please do not put as your headline in your LinkedIn profile, in transition, looking for my next thing. It's just sad. I mean, so I have three kind of I call them rules, but here's how you think about using your network to job search. And it's not obvious at first, so we might have to unpack this a little. The first rule is, clearly, if you're looking for an opportunity, you're looking for a person. So stop clicking on job applications and submitting. It's just a waste of time, even on the LinkedIn job applications. However, on the LinkedIn job applications, it will tell you who you know at that company. So if you're looking for an opportunity, you're looking for a person. Rule number one. Rule number two, the best job description, really the only job description worth doing, is the one you write yourself. So we're going to have to come back to that one in a second, because the third one is seek first to add value. So if you engage the world with, what does the world need? What do I have to offer? Who's hiring? So the beauty of job postings, the only thing they really tell you is that the company needs somebody. I argue they don't even know what they need. Right? For two reasons. First of all, the job description is usually written under duress, probably by someone other than the hiring manager, right? It gets written late at night. I need to get this posted. Will you help me? And they copy and paste from another job description and post it. They don't even know what they want. But the real reason they don't know what they want, they haven't met you yet. They don't even know what you have to offer. You have to come in there with your eyes and say, well, given what I know, what about this? Is this what you need? I'm seeing this. Am I understanding this correctly? And so write the job description yourself. It's actually easier to do once you're in the company. I'm a strong advocate of contract positions, because you get your foot in the door to figure out what they need. And you can kind of say, well, you guys need this, don't you? Why don't I work on this for you? Right? So you're going to write your own job description. But all of those are interactions with people. Right? And seek first to add value. So it's not about finding a job. I know you need healthcare. I know you have kids. They don't care. They don't care. They need help, and you need to help them. They don't even know what they need, and they certainly don't know what you have to offer, because they don't know you. You know you, right? And there's a much better chance that you're going to figure out what they need way faster than they're going to figure out how you can fit, because they don't have the capacity for it. They're buried. They don't even get to post a job posting until they're already buried. If they weren't buried, you wouldn't get the
approval.
You wouldn't get the approval. Yeah. So
Exactly.
They're already in pain, right? Go in and try to figure out how to solve their pain. Use your network to what I call burrowing into the company. If you can see a company's hiring, start to burrow in. Do not trust the job description. It's at best 50% of what they need. Again, because it was written under duress and they haven't met you yet.
Right.
And just start asking questions.
And oftentimes, a job description has things that they don't really need. They just think it'd be nice to put on the list.
Exactly, because they copy and pasted it from another, or they're aspirational. Those are nice things, right? But in fact, they don't need that. Yes.
So now let's talk a little bit about, I have a job, and I still need to network, whether I'm trying to build partnerships and collaboration with other organizations, and I need to build my network. Maybe I'm going to a conference, maybe I'm not. How would I go about that? And do I need to be thinking about my network within my organization?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The whole last section of my book is called Networking at Work. So if you take these ideas of how can I be helpful, right? What are you working on? Why is that not a question you would ask at work? right? I've actually worked at more than one company where they banned LinkedIn from the access. And it's just baffling to me. Why is networking? Now, I think they probably thought it was social media and therefore social media is bad, whatever. But this sense that networking at work is something that you wouldn't do. Why wouldn't you? If your intention is to be helpful, that to me is the definition of collaboration, right? I want to be collaborative. And to me, the absolute golden networking question is, what are you working on? Ask that of your peers. What are you working on? Now, let me say, when you get inside work, in order to be successful in the modern enterprise, any modern organization, you need to do three things. You need to do good work, you need to do the right work, and you need to be visible. Again, if we really unpack these, doing good work is no longer possible in isolation. You can't just sit in the office with a closed door and bang out spreadsheets or whatever, right? You need to be interconnected with people. You need to draw in favors now and then. You need to get information from some other source. So to do good work, you have to be networked. You have to do the right work. And I learned this one the hard way, actually. So I was working at a big tech company and they were so desperate for some project structure. And so I got approval to build a PMO, a project management office. And I got a fairly substantial budget and I hired some consultants. And for 6 months, we went and locked ourselves in a conference room and we developed this beautiful PMO structure, just a great project management office and all kinds of oversight and structure. And we literally didn't pop our heads out for 6 months. And when we came back out, the software, I worked on the hardware side of the house. The software side of the house had rolled out this PMO system. It was inadequate, but it was already rolled out. And I was completely oblivious. So I was doing actually good work, but I wasn't doing the right work because I kind of missed this whole other thing. Now, if I had been better networked in the company, I would have known that this other thing was coming and I would have either intercepted it or influenced it rather than waste $150,000 on contractors on a consulting firm to do something that was never implemented. And finally, just kind of obvious is you just have to be visible, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't know those things unless you know what's going on. And I actually advocate, be very systematic about it. Start by getting to know all of your peers and on your team and people at your level. What are they working on? What are their aspirations? What are they measured on? Just figure that out and then branch out. You should network. You should have a networking meeting probably once a year with every one of your boss's peers. That's actually the most important group for you to build a professional relationship with. Because you need, in order to influence significant change in your organization, you need to influence more than your boss. You need to influence your boss's boss. And your boss's boss is influenced by all of her direct reports, not just your boss. So you see what I'm saying here? There's a whole, I call it the influence map. There's a whole web of people there that if you need something done, you need to convince more than just your boss.
So basically, if we're thinking about networking as when we're looking for a job, we're really way off track.
You're too, yes.
We really need to rethink how we approach networking and the value of our network.
Yes. So certainly if you're gainfully employed now, you should be writing your next job description. You shouldn't be doing the same thing I shouldn't. I used to strive to be doing something different every 18 months. Right? And I used to tell people, if you're still working for me in 3 years, I failed. But if I'm still here in 3 years, I failed. So let's both get moving on. Right? So that's number one. If you're already gainfully employed, then be working on what's next. Write your own job description. Right? You're growing. You're developing more skills. So what do they need? And if that turns out to be not at this company, then in a way you're in the same situation as the job seeker, in which case, what does the world need? What does other companies need? And if you find yourself out on the street, again, groveling doesn't work. So volunteer, offer to do freelance work, contract work. I think these things are golden. Now, if you get stuck in those forever, we have this kind of exploitation problem. But getting a contract gig, and I really advocate people, find out what they need, pitch a 3-month. Okay, I know you're risk averse. You don't have a headcount open. Fine, but you got a problem. Let me work on this, right? Let me come do this for you. And if you can get your foot in there and see what they need and get to know some people and build some relationships and influence a hiring decision, because the hiring manager is not the only person who's going to make that hiring decision. Again, it's the web of people who are going to have to approve that expenditure, which is a huge one, right? To hire someone. So I say, and volunteer. because you're looking for people. If you're looking for opportunity, you're looking for a person, and you got to see what the world needs.
And you're building that meaningful connection.
Exactly. And if you do this right, so this is kind of I'm not advocating that we be doormats, right? If you do this right, you'll surround yourself with people who have the same philosophy, who embrace the world the same way you do. So they'll look to return the favor. Absolutely they will. But you don't have to grovel for it. You just have to participate in this environment of people who are all looking to be helpful to one another. That's a great environment, right?
Right.
So that's what you do, is you engage with the spirit of helpfulness. You look for people who are looking for you. You look for ways to write your own job description, and you engage. And try not find yourself in this position where, you've been laid off and you've got 1 month before you got kicked out of your house. That's really tough, right? But if you've got room to navigate, then you should already be working on whatever's going to be next in 18 months, whether it's at this company or not.
Well, and as we talked about, we need our networks for more than just finding jobs. We need our networks for building partnerships. We need our networks within our own organizations as well.
For information. Your network is your asset. I love this too. The one thing you take with you for your entire career is your network. And it's a network of information. It's a network of introductions. And this is your network, right? So it's an incredible asset. Now, some businesses know this, right? Attorneys and consultants, you get hired for your network, right? You can get hired into a senior level of consulting firm if you bring your Rolodex with you. That's true for everyone. Build your network. Build a web of people that you can call on if you have a question. Go across industries. Go across countries. Just the more diverse and broad it is, the more value your network has, right?
You link networking with having a sense of purpose. How do they relate?
I'm a career coach. I'm a philosopher, right? Having a sense of purpose is really part of who we are, right? I mean, I've been keen on that since I was very small. But it started similar to the networking thing. It's like, there's just so many books and so many articles written about, how to find purpose. Purpose isn't an internal thing. We feel a sense of purpose when we're connected. You won't feel a sense of purpose inside yourself. The sense of purpose is not a solitary thing. It's plural. Purpose is plural, right? So as soon as you start connecting with people and you're looking for ways to be helpful and you're looking for when I say write your own job description, that's because you're looking for ways to apply yourself. And when you apply yourself in a helpful way, you feel a sense of purpose. But it's because I opened the book actually with kind of some philosophy around the idea we're deeply interconnected as a species, not even as a race, but as a planet. Right? I like to say we don't even digest our own food. We're totally dependent on this entire different ecosystem of organisms to digest our food for us. And so everything is interconnected. We're all interconnected. And when you lean into that and you participate in that and you look for ways to be helpful in that, in ways that you can contribute in a meaningful way, because that's what you're offering, right? That's where your sense of purpose comes from. So it's really just, if you're chasing purpose, it's like trying to chase happiness. It's a byproduct of other things. And I have just found that once I started to really consciously engage the world with a spirit of helpfulness, that's what my purpose was. Because I have all this career and I have all this experience. I know all these people and I'm like, you guys here. And it just gave me a sense of purpose, just having something to engage with and something to offer.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Heather. And I encourage all of you to check out Heather Hollick's book, Helpful, A Guide to Life, Careers, and the Art of Networking.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Disruption, brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Learn more about today's topic at aicpa-cima.com/disruption. This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. It is provided with the understanding that the association, its affiliates, and subsidiaries are not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The association, its subsidiaries, and affiliates make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to and assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein and expressly disclaim all liability for such damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.